Hey, this is Rob with Old Guy Tech TV, opinion versus opinion for May 17, 2014. And today with me I have Jonathan Charney and John Manajastic, and we're just going to sit around and talk about stuff. And one of the things that we sent the email blast out to, if you guys were watching us, is, of course, the whole idea that waving the American flag is racism. So, we've talked amongst ourselves a little bit here before this, of course, and the whole point that we brought up is that the reality is this is nothing new. And this particular story came out in 2010, but it is an interesting thing, and it depends on where you sit and your political views, I think, and how you like or dislike the flag, whatever it may be. And
did somebody forget the mood?
Sorry about that. My timer decided to go off.
I don't think he got the memo.
Yeah, you would have thought he would have. Anyway, what the point said is that, if you're an uber patriot, I mean, the flag means a lot to me. But the flag doesn't necessarily mean a lot to everybody. Everyone can be different. And what happens is we have this one particular school that has a very large Hispanic population of students in there. And they chose to celebrate Cinco de Mayo by displaying the Mexican flag and being proud of their Mexican heritage. Well, some of the American kids chose to also do the same thing, displaying the American flag. And apparently that was not okay with the powers that be at this particular school. And then the kids were asked, for whatever reason, to turn their shirts inside out. And I don't know why that was. Did they ask kids? I'm sorry. Did they ask the kids with the Mexican flags on them to turn their shirts inside out? I don't think so. So we have some disparity here. Go ahead, John.
No, I speak to him about his alarm. That's really irritating.
I'm sorry.
Because it's right by my mic.
Well, I don't understand what that was.
I have an opinion about this, and it is one school. Rob, you go back to you and me and people with American flags on their jeans and wow, what a big hoodoo that was. Absolutely. And Easy Rider and that this flag issue has been around for a long time. And also one of you can watch it on YouTube, The Greatest Play in Baseball, when Rick Mundy runs by and picks up the American flag when two guys are in the outfield at Dodger Stadium, dousing it with lighter fluid and getting ready to light it on fire. Yeah. I think at that point in the late 70s, early 80s.
Brave man.
Well, and there's been a number of ways to show your displeasure. And another one, of course, is the stress signal, which has turned the flag upside down.
But we've also had problems in Southern California where the Mexican flag was flown above the American flag.
Which is against the law.
Oh, totally.
Uniform flag code.
Yep.
Believe it or not, there is a code, ladies and gentlemen. Look it up. It's quite interesting.
After 9/11, believe me, everybody knew flag code. I put a flag on the sleeve of a T-shirt and made GD sure that it was in the right place, because it was a real issue. Do you know where it's, and because if you did it wrong, people knew because it was in the news. It's one of these deals of zero tolerance, and it's a school deal, and it's certainly, I can't say I love that they did it. On the other hand, if you're going to maintain a school day, and Rob, you and I have talked about this, amongst ourselves, we've just become very divisive over people's political positions and intolerant.
And I think that's the better word. I think intolerant. It's the old, can't we just all get along?
Wait.
But
Question.
there are these issues coming up like, hey, how come because of people that are quote unquote not American, we're putting, we have to turn the American flag shirt inside out. I'm sure they wouldn't let that happen at a prison. Unfortunately, when you've got a school that have differing demographic populations, you have to do what's best for that micro community that's going to keep it from going over the top.
Okay, I'm not.
Believe me, I know the feeling. I have taught in schools that are majorly Hispanic, in towns that are majorly Hispanic in the Central Valley, and it's a little reverse.
Yeah, I'm not a big, red, white, and blue flag waving person. I'm not Jim Duggan out there, but yet there's no excuse. If they hate the American flag, they can seriously go someplace else.
I got a quote from one person here, one of the children that went to that school here, and I found it interesting, only in that it starts out with, F your American flag, racist as F, and we all know what that means. I'll always have pride with my Mexican flag, but not the American one. Okay.
You see,
well,
this is no.
Where are you at? And why are you here?
At the same time, and this is, and oh man, am I putting my foot in it here?
Don't stop now.
My issue is that it starts out that way. You know what I'm saying? F your American flag. All right. It's become confrontatory. And, a lot of these people that are doing this are American citizens, American citizen, first generation Hispanic. I don't know that they're illegal immigrants. Technically, under California State Educational Code, they really shouldn't be illegal immigrants in the school. So,
right.
Well,
for whatever that's worth.
I always assumed they were just American citizens.
It is unusual. I thought Morgan Hill was more affluent neighborhood, but apparently not, or at least not where this high school is.
Right.
Because it is in Morgan Hill, which is in Northern California. I feel strongly about it. When I was a hippie, or when I was a young man, if somebody denigrated or destroyed the American flag in front of me, I certainly was not standing there rooting them on. And in the few times that it happened, I had to step up and say, I'd rather you didn't do that, or I left.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to. I'm not down with that. Because that's it. Though some people may not think so, but I mean, I'm a lover of the United States of America and what it stands for and the things we do. I'm sometimes embarrassed by the way we do some of the things that we do, but everybody in every country is sometimes embarrassed. So get over it. This is a conflict, and immigration. This country is built on immigrants. We have a real issue here. Are we going to do something about it? We're not going to do something about it. Obama signed the DREAM Act deal. That's going to run out. Part of it, I think, is just frustration, but this is an issue, and when we talked about it pre-show, that goes all the way back to the Zoot Suiters during World War II in Los Angeles and the harbor. And East LA, I mean, you grew up in the city here, Rob. Well, you live in LA, you either understand that you've got to assimilate some Hispanic culture, or you probably should move someplace else.
Right.
There are parts of and where I just left. I mean, Bakersfield is over 50% Hispanic surname.
What was the
now? Does that mean that they get to bully us?
Yes.
And no.
The school just showed its soft underbelly.
No, Jonathan, you just want to be dramatic.
No. I actually mean it by doing what they did. If you were the principal of
the school and you had 85% Hispanic population, you might say on campus today, I don't think so.
Okay, so
I
then
don't want to have a race riot.
Okay, there you go. So what your opinion is that this was done to quell a potential situation.
That.
Okay, all right.
If they're going to do zero tolerance, why
don't you seriously look at doing something about immigration reform?
Well, but good luck doing that. But I was to talk about the school. If you're going to do zero policy, what I would say.
Wait a minute, John. Let Jonathan finish his statement, then you can come in.
Okay.
First thing is you're never going to get anything to change when it comes to immigration policy. Never happened, never will. They've been trying to do it forever. Nothing's changed. The other part is, if I was, wait, please. The other part where it comes to zero tolerance, what I would say is there'd be no flags except United States and California. Everything else is banned because they're the only things, say no Mexican flags, no German flags.
That wouldn't be very American. All other flags are banned.
So banning the U.S. flag? Zero policy, zero tolerance.
We don't want to. It is the American flag can be a point. I can tell you places in the world you don't want to pull an American flag out, mate.
Yeah, but we're talking in the United States.
I'm talking about United States. I'm not talking about Korea, China, Vietnam. I'm talking about right here.
I'm talking about you're dealing with a reaction in a particular high school to something, and for you to say, hey, the Nixon, the Reagan administration, Reagan threw the doors open and had amnesty. There were no penalties. There were no back fees. Here, come on. If you're here, come on in. You're in.
The problem I see is
under the vaunted hero of the 20th century.
We're getting off topic,
There
though.
will be immigration change, but part of what you're reflecting is the fact that white people are in the minority, the demographic, the whole...
Here's the thing. I actually don't... I know I'm white.
Is changing.
Here's the crap thing. I don't actually care. What I am saying is the fact that if somebody's going to stop a flag for being shown, it should not be the court of the realm. You shouldn't say, I'm just saying, there's got to be something better.
The Constitution. If you're running a school, you have to do whatever. Dude, go to a classroom. You have to do whatever it takes to maintain peace in the classroom. And if there is an immigration problem where you live, and boy, I have been there. I have felt like been clearly made to feel like the minority.
Yeah.
And I was.
And this school obviously has a very large Hispanic population because the school officials basically said that they needed to do this so that there would not be any violence in the school.
Right.
Okay. They came out and actually they said we had to do this. So
their primary objective is to educate children, have their parents or convey them, or the bus that convey them to the school, to return their children back to them in the same condition that they came to school that day.
Right.
I know it's a bizarre thing if you're not in education and you think it's the PCs and the tight Birkenstocks. It's a matter of peace. And you can complain and say nothing's going to happen. But here's a very large problem that Jonathan, you need to deal with in your future. If you want anything, and if you don't think anything will change, I got to tell you, that's a pretty sad point of view.
Well, you know what this comes back down to, and we talked about it before. I have a problem with the fact that we're not requiring uniforms in school now so that this type of situation doesn't happen. The way it was treated, it should have been, if you're going to ask the kids that wanted to display an American flag to turn their shirts inside out, they should have done the same thing with American flag, the Mexican flag shirts, and asked them to turn them inside out as well.
Even though that would have been fair, that wouldn't have worked.
You know what the underlying stupidity of the whole thing is? Cinco de Mayo is not a Mexican holiday.
Yeah.
It is a Mexican-American holiday,
I know.
and more American than it is Mexican.
That's right.
It's
And we celebrate it more than the Mexicans do.
It's Mexican St. Patty's Day,
Yeah.
okay? So, but the LULAC and other true immigration people have latched onto it in schools, etc. It made it an issue. We need immigration reform. And the problem is, Jonathan, when you say fat chance, it's that people are blocking. Across the country, people are in favor of, let's talk about doing this.
Well, yes, but
it's such a divisive issue.
I agree.
The fact of the border and its security, we can't build the wall of China, and it didn't work anyway. All of the Maginot Line, all of these defenses that have been built over the time immemorial became monuments, but they didn't function to keep the people out that they wanted to keep out.
Right.
We have to, and we are a country of immigrants. We are becoming a world of non-white majority. I'm not giving. I mean, I've just always been an equality, egalitarian kind of guy. So
Yeah.
I don't really have an issue with
Well,
that.
I think I have a solution for it, but yet it's not being done. Every time the term uniforms come up, people think of prep schools and all that. But I know
that's
it's
what
been
we're
done in a
using.
number of the inner city schools have adopted a uniform code
They
because
have
of the
to. There's
gang
too
thing.
many gangs.
Yeah, because of the gang thing, and I think that would have solved the whole thing. And so now let's take let's stop looking at what the hell these kids are wearing, and let's talk about their education. You know, get those uniforms or make everybody do the same thing, whatever it may be. And now let's talk about education and get away from, hey, I have a right to display my flag. Oh, I got a right to display my flag. Oh, no, you don't. I'm going to beat you. You know, we've got to stop that.
Even when I taught within a penal institution, a probation facility but it was not youth camp. This was prison. I got blindsided because I couldn't tell from tattoo signs or anything
Right.
else who was a Crip, who was
Right.
a Blood,
I wouldn't
who was
know
a
either.
Norteño, who was a, and it's on that level with since gangs, unfortunately, are a key to what's going on in their community, both African American and Hispanic. And as I've told you off air, sometimes the two struggles get very confused.
You know what's interesting is this, when you start looking at the different ethnic groups, now we also have a very large, well, two other large groups. We have the Asian groups up in our way, as well as, of course, the Russian, Chechen groups as well. And,
Croatians,
and Croatians, and
Romanians.
You don't see them doing this, and I'll tell you why, because they don't want to go back to that country they came from.
Yeah. I was actually talking with a Romanian woman 2 weeks ago, and we were both denying our Romanian heritage.
Yeah, exactly.
Except I said Vlad the Impaler, and she went, Vlad was a good king.
Hey, stuck a guy here, stuck a guy there, no big deal.
I think you probably could have gotten the message across at 10,000. You didn't have to go to 70,000.
Oh, well.
Pale bodies. And they and just in the 90s, the Romanians drugged Ceausescu, their fallen leader, out in the street, and basically did they hung him up in his lady and beat him and stoned him and killed him.
Yeah.
So I mean,
but that's I guess that's my point is we open our doors for many ethnic groups.
System. Yeah. Mexico's so big and so virtually lawless.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough place to police.
I do think there's.
Did you go to Mazatlan with us in Semi?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I do
You
think.
there?
Yes.
Are you there?
Can't hear anybody.
Oh, there you go. Reboot yourself again.
At my end.
Reboot yourself again, John.
So that's his proverbial mic drop, you know.
What do you want?
Reboot.
Just to get even. Go ahead,
Reboot.
Tyler. I'm going to call you back and see if we straighten this thing out.
All right. Anyway,
Welcome to
that way
this-
it gives us a chance to talk for a minute. But that's
By the way, you owe me $20. I told you. I told you.
hey, it's just the way it is. So you're gonna have to answer.
I mean, you know John, Raza forever.
Yeah,
Hey.
Um,
I'm a serious threat for the lip reading community.
there is a few things though. I actually think this flag thing is. I do kind of think it's a slippery slope because it's become very in vogue the last number of years to be very anti-American. It's really weird. Like you had the rise of the Tea Party patriots, then you have the rise of Americans whose grandfathers and parents ran away and they're going, I hate America, America sucks. But it's just like it's very in vogue to be anti-American.
Well,
I just see
but
these two things becoming
when
very
you
in vogue.
had the American flag on the bottom on the ass of your jeans, or on your motorcycle jacket. I mean, this is not a new issue with the flag.
Yeah,
and
it's
I-
just a
you know,
shame
I'm
that
wrong.
it comes into a classroom situation, and instead of handling it, which I think was the right way of doing it, I think they chose the wrong way of doing
Well,
it.
I think because
And we all have our rights to have our opinions on
I
it. Yes,
actually
go,
think
John.
what it would have happened in my school experience, more recent than your guys's, but I actually think what they would do is make everybody, anybody with a flag on their shirt, turn their shirt around. That's what they would have done. Said, we're going to be fair, and nobody gets what they want.
Well, no, we get what we want, which means you don't get what you want. That's the way it works in school, yeah?
Well, yeah, no, that's what I meant. I was
That's the
talking.
way it worked in school when I was there. No.
Well, I meant the
sorry.
students. None of the students would get what they want, and the administration would basically say, "You guys don't get a choice. Turn it out or go home."
Hey, believe me, when your dad and I went to school, choices? Were there choices, Rod? Did you have choices? Did
Had
you
no
get choices?
choices.
I didn't get choices.
Well, this is from the same guy who said he walked uphill and download in the snow in Santa Monica.
Barefoot.
That's right.
It's like when I was a kid, it snowed to school.
So-
Hey, listen,
nuts.
when John and I went to the school, there was still a dress code in a believe it or not, when we were in the band, particularly marching band season, we had a code of our hair had to be a certain length, we couldn't have the facial hair. I mean, it was very strict in the
Wow,
beginning.
but see, you were behind me in 1969
Yeah.
because the dress code changed in 1970. You were allowed to do those things.
We were allowed to
We
have a
didn't
mustache.
have them.
That's it. No
The
beard.
hair could not be over your collar. Your
Nope.
sideburns couldn't be past the middle part of your ear. Girls had to wear skirts to school. I did get it fixed so they could wear slacks on rainy days.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. And if I remember my history correctly, Ed Big Daddy Roth and other people started doing screen printed tees. Was that allowed in school? If you actually had one?
Yeah. I don't think there was any problem with it.
But I don't think you could wear a T-shirt when up to 69 when I graduated. I'm not sure that you could just wear a T-shirt to school. I think you had to wear a shirt with a collar.
Oh, wow.
You know what's funny about that? I was actually looking at some of the pictures of the different years, and there were a number of kids wearing T-shirts. Because I was looking at the dress, trying to figure it out. And as you were talking about, because I looked at the fact that I think it would have been maybe your senior year. It's in the pictures, and I saw a picture of myself, no mustache, short hair. I did have longer sideburn, but I was wearing a
Yes, you
T-shirt.
did.
Mutton chops.
Yeah,
You radicals.
I know. I was one of those terrible people.
Yeah, maybe, but
So, I
I
don't
thought that you had to wear a shirt with collar.
Yeah, the only reason I honestly don't remember, but the only reason I think you could is because I just recently looked at a number of those photos and everybody was wearing a T-shirt.
Now, I have a
I
question.
will tell you the one thing that amazed me in all the years that I substitute taught is more than once a kid came up to me and asked me, "Do you have any gum?" Now, that
Wow.
I made that statement, your father would understand because he went through what I went through. If you even said the word gum at school when we went to school, expulsion was in your near future.
Yeah.
That you would suggest that this sticky clay-like mass would be introduced into the student population was every janitor ran for the acetone
Yep.
and every teacher pulled their hair out.
Wow, and I thought the felony for marijuana was a little harsh. Holy crap.
Look, if you were chewing gum and smoking pot, they'd probably tell you to spit the gum out and put it in the trash first, and then they deal with the issue number 2.
So I have a question for you two. If you wanted to do uniforms, would it be like the prep school, everybody wore the same thing, or basic style of dress?
Yeah, everybody wore the same thing.
Slacks.
Yeah.
Well, no, I meant like, because in some schools, uniform means everybody wears black pants, gray shirt, that's it, period, if and or but. Are
Sure.
you talking about more
That's
like,
it.
It could be either or.
or
Now I do know that in some of the inner city schools that have taken on uniforms, it's just like the prep school situation. The girls are wearing skirts and
Sexist.
blouses. The boys are actually wearing a shirt and tie.
I'm assuming
and
the girls
slacks.
can also wear pants.
Hey, I don't even think of it in terms of prep school. When we were kids, it was the Catholic school. Catholic school had
Oh,
uniforms,
exactly. Yeah.
and we didn't.
Right.
Now there are prep academies over on. I mean, there are prep academies in Santa Monica, but I think at this point in time, we've unfortunately evolved to a point where if you do want to get education, because I was talking to another teacher last night about short shorts. I mean, folks, the pants they wear at Hooters are the pants they wear to high school.
I know.
The only difference is that, a little bit of the bun, is and in some of them not.
Now we're
But they're
talking about
shorts, and they wear them
Right.
girls. If I was a woman, I would refuse because I'd be
And
so
ugly.
effing cold all the time between cleavage and short shorts.
Yeah. I think we have a really, that's a whole nother issue that you brought up now, is the over-sexualization of our children, because these are still children here. And the parents are allowing this extreme dress that these young girls from
See, this is
virtually, cleavage down to their navels and
funniest thing about this is, so I'm in my 30s. Obviously these gentlemen are a little older. When I was in school, in high school, the only people who wore what some of these girls were ladies of ill repute advertising.
well, exactly. That's the point.
It's insane. Like I've actually seen, and there was the first time I was really shocked in a long time. There's a 14-year-old girl, had to be 14, 15, wore the short shorts, and her pockets, were 3 feet, were dangling 3 feet from the bottom of her pants. And it's, when did I become a prude? Because that's inexcusable. I mean, she's almost making
Where
sense
is
of
mom and dad saying, you know what? No, you're not going to be going out and wearing stuff that's basically not covering anything.
Well, you
I'm sorry.
saw guys. I was watching people's reaction. You saw guys look away because right now the guy, legally the dude's almost a sex offender.
Yeah, it's scary as hell.
Guys, and I shouldn't say this, but I figure they'll never hire me anyway. When I went to the district office, the women in the district office for the school district were dressed, in my old opinion, totally inappropriately.
Yeah.
I mean, the clothing was way too colorful, way too loud, 5-inch heels, 3-inch heels. I mean, in the office,
Yeah.
maybe, if you're playing Wolves of Wall Street, but in a conservative communities high school district, it was just not.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We had the opportunity to go to our Office of Education here in El Dorado County and observe what people looked like and dressed and all that. And they were dressed very conservatively. You wouldn't have found that, at least up here in El Dorado County. Our Office of Education doesn't allow their teachers or their people to dress anything but conservatively. So
It's rural folks that, when you go to town, you get dressed up.
yeah.
Or you go to court. I mean, what judges put up with from defendants, let alone attorneys.
Oh yeah.
There's some attorney. I mean, they're and we've had this conversation. I mean, I'm all for a little bit of decorum and a little bit of class from time to time. Although with my new gain, I thought I'd replace my suit. God, dog it, suits are expensive nowadays. Everything
yeah.
is.
I don't know. I remember when the last time I worked an office job, you'd see, ladies in heels and colorful clothing. That was fine. Anything showing a massive amount of cleavage, however, you'd hear the boss or the HR lady going,
No,
you need
push-ups,
not to do
cleavage, all this kind of stuff where I come from. I'm just telling you.
that. Well, I mean,
Now-
from my experience, a little bit was okay. A little bit was, okay, that's dress. But anything over a certain amount or too high was very you'd be told to go home.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it's within an environment of women. There are not a lot of
Exactly.
men, they're like, it's like the hen house, guys.
Yeah, it's more like, who can show the most and get away with it. I don't know.
Because no guy would be crazy enough to say something in that
Don't run a
environment.
bikini contest without judges.
Yeah. So
Don't
now
let
the
that
next thing you know,
couple
the
do it.
schools are going to have wet T-shirt
I
contests to
know.
raise money. I just
If I was in
That's
high
not
school,
there. That's from doing bikini contest. Women can become very, very competitive.
Hey, you know what? Any ladies out there that have an opinion about this, 530-621-1210, we need a woman to come in and jump in on this one, because I'd like to hear from somebody that has another opinion, if there is another opinion, or if you agree with us.
In the meantime, while we're hopefully finding somebody
calls
about cleavage push-ups and cleavage push-ups, CFMs and short shorts.
You even know the terminology. That scares me.
CFM.
Dude, I was in high school, okay?
Yeah.
They talk about things, and I walk by and go, say what?
Yeah, John was taking. What we didn't see was John was writing down. I didn't know you could do that. Ooh,
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I was a musician. Anyway, you get now.
Next.
The U.S. Geological Survey, the end of last week, has issued a severe earthquake warning for central Oklahoma. It's the first time ever in the history of the United States that a severe earthquake warning has been issued in a state east of the Rocky Mountains. And for a dear friend of ours, and coming from a place where this is, we're kind of dodging the bullet, but the story went on. It came from a website called Science Live to say that the USGS geologists say, look, it's because of fracking. There is no other geological, natural reason that we can, and this is in the last 2 years, it's just skyrocketed in areas. Right. And they just happen to also be the most highly fracked areas in Oklahoma.
They have a fracking problem.
And they have a fracking problem. They do. The issue is, I was in Texas in the 70s, or actually in the 60s. And my father's company, that the guys that owned the thing were originally from Texas. They owned a fracking service in Texas, and this was 1965. In big oil states and up in the San Joaquin Valley, in the oil areas, they've been fracking for nearly 50 years now.
I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah, it's not new technology. Just now we're hearing about it. More because of the problems that they've had up in the Dakotas in other areas with the gas actually getting into the water table.
Then why does Texas not have, like, you've heard of any issues from it where you have areas like Oklahoma? Is that what you said the warnings were, John?
Yeah, well, Texas is so vast. There's a little difference in there. And if you've been fracking for the last 50, 60 years, let's say, something has to happen with the ground, right? Mm-hmm. What you're doing is you're going in there and you're fracturing all these pockets, and so you can extract the gas. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what's left behind?
And oil.
Nothing. And oil. And so now we're sucking all of that out of there, and what's left? It's got to settle at some point. And when it settles, it's an earthquake. So.
Well, and even in fact, many years later, your father and I think it was like 1956, 57. There was a dam in Baldwin Hills,
which the famous failure. Yes.
And they now have determined, because those hills are also dotted with oil wells, and you go around the corner there on La Cienega, and you end up, it's Standard Oil, right, down there in El Segundo. Mm-hmm. And why I started that, I have forgotten, unfortunately. But anyway, they determined that the Baldwin Hills Dam failure was because they undermined the dam. Yeah. It was an earthen dam, and it collapsed in on itself because the underpinning, they were fracking up in those hills. That was 57.
Yeah, yeah.
And it undermined the dam and caused the dam to fail.
It's interesting. I saw I think it's National Geographic or History Channel had a whole thing on that particular dam, and they talked about the failures and why it failed and how it was mishandled on the notices and all that stuff. But you know what? There's cause and effect And when you look at, bottom line, follow the money, and when you do what you have to, when you're looking for those mighty bucks, sometimes you don't make the right decisions. And that was a good example of one that unfortunately took some lives. And it'll be interesting to see if there is that big earthquake in Oklahoma.
So, according to this source of all knowledge on the internet, Wikipedia, the reservoir was located on a low hilltop between Baldwin Hills, Los Angeles, California. It was constructed between 47 and 51 by the LA Department of Water and Power.
Sure. Yeah, it was a pretty new dam.
For a few people out there who had no idea what it was.
Well, and you have to remember that L.A. in its horrible water story, and I'm sitting here in Northridge, which kind of is a little different than Los Angeles, but you have to see the two Jakes to understand the valley. But L.A. has no water.
Oh.
Yeah.
Has no water storage.
No.
Has no natural lakes. Has no.
Yeah.
And it's got how many people that need to flush a toilet? Come on.
So here, for a little bit more information, says the underlying geological strata were considered unstable for reservoir, as noted, and the design called for a compacted soil lining meant to prevent seepage in the foundation. The fault lines were considered during planning were deemed by some, although not all engineers and geologists involved, as significant. So apparently they just completely ignored it.
Oh, it's kind of like smoking doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No,
That's what it was. I mean, it was. They knew something was going to happen, but they didn't care.
To kind of get this back into what John was saying, do they, in the last 50, 60 years of fracking over the years, have they noticed a problem? Have they noticed there's issues like the tobacco company knowing that tobacco kills you?
Yes.
In this particular case, which is my singular example, because my ongoing argument with an associate,
which, by the way, is kind of amusing.
But when the USGS comes out and says we can't find any other reason why they would have earthquakes, and folks understand that the largest earthquake in the history of the United States, which was in the sevens, was in New Maudlin, Missouri, and changed the bed of the Mississippi River.
That's right.
I do believe that was 1854 or something like that.
We needed our resident geologist to call. Connor, Bob.
Him.
Where's Bob?
Bob?
We've lost Bob.
Talked to Bob in a while.
Yeah.
Come on, Bob.
He's a light. Well, was. He worked as a geologist for the state of California for many, 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 many years. He would have been the one who could have answered this one better than us. Maybe we'll put this on our list to bring up next week, and I'll try to get Bob to come on, and he could be our.
But yeah, it's significant in that there's it's a global warming thing. It's a and there's this huge debate. But we need, number one, we're exporting more oil now than we have ever before in the history of this country.
Yeah, and
so
how come the price of gases keeps going up now? What's going on?
It just came down a couple of pennies.
So here,
summertime.
I do have a little bit more information. My Google Foo's working today on the New Maudlin earthquake. The New Madrid, was that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The New Madrid earthquake was the biggest earthquake in American history. It occurred in the central Mississippi Valley, but was felt as far away as New York, Boston, Montreal, Washington, D.C. They felt in the White House. Church bells rang in Boston from December 16th, 1811 through March 1812. There were over 2,000 individual earthquakes in central Midwest.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine how big that earthquake was, to feel it from that point all the way into Washington, D.C., or even worse, New York or Boston?
And the Mississippi.
Blown up every cell telephone tower in the Northeast.
And it said the Mississippi.
And the Southeast as well.
It said after the February 7th earthquake, boatmen reported the Mississippi actually ran backwards. Holy crap, that's a big earthquake.
That's a big earthquake.
Well, that means that a fissure opened up in the bed of the Mississippi that was greater than its flow.
Yeah.
Right, for it to run backwards, because then it sucked in. And it probably caused some sort of a tidal wave, because that's how a tidal wave happens. Because once it fills up, that energy has to go somewhere.
Right. It was actually, I think you have it right. I think it was an inland tsunami is what we had.
So would it take that type of natural disaster to get people to think if
If it's worth
Your
it or not?
fracking is worth it or not.
You know, if it happened now, that's a good question, isn't it? Because that's one of those things that's a big debate. Because look in the Dakotas. Fracking right now is the biggest thing going on in the Dakotas. And you have communities that actually, because of fracking, that's the only thing they can say would happen.
Was that that news interview where the lady could light their sink off
Correct.
on fire?
Correct. There's a whole community where there was so much gas coming into their water that they turn on the tap and it can hit a lighter. So it's only place in the country where you can get a glass of water and a smoke at the same time.
Or you don't have to work nearly as hard to boil it. Did we lose me again?
No,
No,
you're
I
there.
hear you. Are you there?
I'm here.
And if it gets to the point where you don't hear us, just reboot. But we hear you just fine.
I'm for the economic part of fracking, but I didn't know it was this new. So,
Yeah,
but that old. So if it really is that dangerous, they really need to think about it more.
Well,
I am wondering if there are areas that are more suitable to fracking far as the actual strata and the rock below, or are there others more susceptible to the dangers of it?
Well, but just to quote USGS on our situation, I wrote it down. Even if wastewater injection directly affects a low hazard fault, those smaller events could trigger an event on a larger fault nearby. Which, if you understand fault systems, I mean, you could hit the main vein, but you could still cause problems by fracking everything around it. And just in passing, tar sands from Canada are a similar kind of process.
Now, the question, the wastewater injection, that's when they take all the scum and stuff they picked up along the way and inject it back into the ground?
Well, let me kind of explain the process to you. And fracking can come in many, I mean, best to look up. But I have a friend in Bakersfield whose son, his entire job for Standard Oil is keeping an eye
Bob,
on
it's Rob.
all their speed.
Are you able to talk on the phone and
He's got to mute his
answer
mic
a
pack,
question
ladies and
on
gentlemen.
fracking? We're on the air right now.
What were you saying before we were so rudely interrupted, John?
Yeah.
I forget. He
All right.
just
I'm
shattered
going to
my
add
whole
you to the mix here. Now, you guys, can you hear Bob?
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Bob, we've been debating. I can't get my earpiece
Well,
in.
no, Bob. Here's what started it. Friday of last week, the USGS issued a severe earthquake warning for central Oklahoma, and they claim that they have looked at everything, and the USGS is saying it's being caused by fracking.
Well, sometimes the USGS doesn't know, in all reality,
Speak up, Bob.
sometimes they don't know in all reality what causes an earthquake. An example of that is the blind thrust that nobody knew existed in Los Angeles until it had an earthquake.
Right.
But fracking can disturb the material because what it does is it changes pore pressure down deep. It opens up by pressure the areas around the oil shales and the reserves so that they can force instead of by natural overburden pressure that most oil wells have today. You intercept a oil reservoir and the pressure, overburden pressure pressing down on that is what puts a lot of that oil coming out of the ground.
Right.
And you have to push it out of the ground.
Right.
You have
They're replacing it with I forgot what the material is called, but
It's basically steam and hot water, or steam or hot water.
well, they also have a material,
combination of both.
right, Bob? Isn't it
Right.
something they pump in?
Well, I can't think of what it is right now, to be very honest with you. But
Yeah.
so they put high pressure steam down. The steam is what helps to emulsify the more solidified oil, if you want to use that, and get it to moving. Now, anytime you start moving some material out of a zone, you create something in that zone that's not natural, and you can have subsidence. The Los Angeles Basin down there, where they have all that oil wells, the old oil wells down there.
Right.
They were doing that, and they actually got subsidence.
Right.
Where the ground just started falling, sinking. Now,
Well, and Bob, they have that, and Jonathan had looked something up, but in the case of the Baldwin Hills Dam, I have heard in the last 5 years that they finally came to the conclusion it was caused by drilling for oil, because that whole area there, the Culver City, the South Culver City thing, the back lots to the lots and everything, they were drilling oil, since the 1800s, and that they basically they had subsidence under the dam that caused the dam to fail.
oh, well, that was, I haven't heard that lately because, I'm not following everything that I should. I've retired, but
I mean, why would you file? Baldwin Hills was, I think, what, 50?
Well, Bob was there.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
watching it.
But yeah, I brought this up because there's a huge debate over it, and this is the first time anybody's ever quote unquote said we really can't see any other reason for this is the first time a severe earthquake warning's ever been issued east of the Rockies. So it's in the news. It's something that's going on.
And we just thought maybe you had a little bit of expertise that we didn't to help explain it to the audience a little bit. So.
Well, the thing that you got to remember, whenever you take something out, either by force, like fracking, or by just hydraulic pressure or overburden pressure onto reserves, something has to replace it to keep the status quo.
Right.
And now down in LA, they are actually injecting material in there to solidify or to stabilize that subsidence.
Right.
Now, where they're saying that, on the eastern side of the Rockies, there, out in the Great Valley, I mean, and that we had, I don't know, I haven't seen any fault maps if they got fault out there. I'm not sure, but I'm sure there are.
Well, if you want to take a look, it's a website called Science Live that reported it, and they've got their conversations with the USGS and why they decided to issue a severe earthquake warning.
Yeah. Anyway, Bob, I didn't want to bother your afternoon, but I thought we needed your expertise for a moment, and I'm sure you forgot about the show anyway, so I thought I'd ring your bell.
No, I just, what I've got to do here,
Yeah, I do. Well, I don't want to bother you anymore. Maybe I'll call you later if anything else gives me a call, but thank you for your help.
Okay, certainly.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye. Bye-bye.
So, we were right, pretty much on what we were talking about, and so it's like anything else, cause and effect. And the old, like John and I said, follow the money, question everything, follow the money, and I think we can see what the heck's going on. And, these neighborhoods, I feel really bad for some of these folks that are having that issue where the gas is coming out of the water. Now where are they going to go? And, of course, the companies are denying it. It can't be us. It's not our fault. Government seems to turn a blind eye on this issue. And,
but on top of it, Rob, not only, can you light your tap on fire, but your husband, your daughter, your son, and you in some way, shape, or form all work for the oil company that's fracking the area.
Well, there you go.
So,
that's your job. That's right.
You bite the hand that feeds you, and in the current term, you would not be giving up your job if you could help it.
Yeah.
And say, hey, by the way, I'm not going to work for you anymore. You frack.
Right.
I'm curious if some of these.
Only on Wednesdays.
I'm curious if some of these people have these problems sign an NDA, so they get.
I'm
so,
sure.
so if
Well,
they have
it
any
depends
issues,
on
they
your level
can't.
in the company, but I'm sure they have.
Well, I mean, I'm really surprised when these people have like their fracking in their backyard who voluntarily allow it. I'm surprised they don't have to sign an NDA saying you can't keep playing.
No. You'll be paid for it. When I lived in Santa Monica,
They were vertical drilling. We got paid money from Standard Oil.
We got paid.
That wasn't a lot, but my parents got a check every month from them they were drilling right basically underneath all of Santa Monica.
Yeah.
So
hey, there is an oil well, Rob's seen it right on the campus of Beverly Hills High School.
Yep.
Right behind Century City. Yeah. Been there forever.
Yeah, they study it. They have a whole class on it.
There used to be oil wells pumping all over LA in places you would never expect them.
Yeah.
Over the years, they've done away with them, so they're not eyesores. But
Well, and I think there's some science pointing out to, maybe it's not a good idea in an area that has so many faults to keep, sucking fluid out of the ground there and causing overburden and all these other things and causing the earthquakes.
It just means Northern California is slowly becoming beachfront property.
Yeah, there we go.
Actually, if the San Andreas moves, I guess Southern California will, but Los Angeles, in the way it's moving, since it's a slip strike fault,
right.
It's not so eventually Los Angeles will be a western suburb of San Francisco.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. We won't be around to see that, but that's what eventually will happen.
I found an interesting article on a website called Western Journalism. Never heard of them, but I read the article last week, and they were talking about there is starting to be a lot of incidents with the Mexican army crossing the U.S. border and actually pointing weapons at border patrols. And according to
shot,
here we go again, Mexico.
Well, honestly, you're not going to hear Canadians do it. But they say the border. The Mexican soldiers have crossed the border more than 300 times during the past 18 years. That's not a giant number, but I do find it interesting that there have been, multiple incursions by the Mexican army.
Well, but the question is, and when you say that, I remember, beloved Huell Hauser once doing a show on the Northern California border between Oregon and California. And based on GPS, USGS, local map, it was in 5 different places. So before I get real upset about them crossing the border, I'd want to know how far into the country they encouraged and what did they do when they got here.
That was the one thing I was looking for.
We went too far north.
Was it not? I thought it was an issue with ICE, and there was
anybody crosses our border without authorization, Army or anybody else.
Right.
It's an ICE issue.
Yeah, it's an ICE issue, and I think that's what happened. I think they got into a little bit of a shooting war there.
The interesting part about this, because one part I was actually looking for, is that a lot of these encounters happen in the middle of the night, where the light is low and you don't know who you're encountering. You're sitting and there's a group of guys coming up to you. So it sounds like there's 2 things, Army, the military, their military doing something suspicious, or night patrols.
Well, so there's talk of that parts of their military are protecting the cartels, and that's been talked about for quite a while. And I think that's what this story is leading to, is the fact that maybe the Mexican army is doing some protection for the cartels and bringing drugs across the border.
There's a farmer, and I'm assuming he's close to the border, was talking about how there was a Mexican army helicopter that landed behind his barn.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting.
So what do you do?
Yeah,
what do you do if you're you're in the good old United States of America, and all of a sudden this Mexican military helicopter lands in your backyard?
And you're Farmer Bob, or
whatever
your name is.
Hey, Sheriff, I need some help here.
I'm being invaded.
As we both know, Farmer Bob could be better armed than the guys in the helicopter.
Could be better armed for the sheriff.
Yeah, it depends on what state. Texas,
it's a good thing I
could come
didn't
out
take you down with a 50 cal before you landed the damn thing.
It definitely will be if they ever invade Ted Nugent's place. They're in danger.
Well, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Georgia, all those areas, they're damn well armed.
The fun states.
I told you the story when at first I'd moved to Texas. My parents were there. I was going down to basically East Texas to work, and I was with a gentleman by the name of Bill Bratcher, and we were in like nowhere back road Texas, and somebody pulled a dumb one in front of me, and I went to honk the horn, and this gentleman grabbed my arm with a death lock. And this is 1970s, and said, "Son, we ain't got no weapons in the car." I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And you'd probably be well to
not honk that horn, just let it go.
because it's like impugning one's mother's chastity or something. It's not good.
Wait.
I
So you had
never
a
honked the horn at anybody for the rest of the time I was there.
Just pull the wire on the horn, so even if you hit it, it doesn't go off.
A Santa Monica hippie in
Give me
Texas.
those, baby.
Yeah.
A Santa Monica hippie in Texas in the 70s must have been a very interesting
Oh
experience.
yeah.
Texas was interesting, but
He was
on
still a
the
kid.
East Texas-Louisiana border, when I see you in person, I can regale you with stories for days.
Sounds interesting.
Jeez, the
But ding 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 ding.
yay, it's the start of NASCAR, right? I mean, we got to have those Southern boys driving and doing stuff down there. We didn't have the racing.
Oh,
that was run and shine.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just became NASCAR driver.
I do
Well, I know,
have something
that's my
funny.
point.
Have you ever guys heard of it's Dogecoin? It's another cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. They sponsored, or Reddit apparently sponsored, a NASCAR car, and the logo of this coin is a Shiba Inu. It's basically
A little Akita.
It's a little Japanese Akita looking dog.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny. You got this giant on the back end of a car. It's a Shiba Inu staring at the other drivers.
And that's a NASCAR?
Yeah. I don't know which
It could be an NASCAR.
Yeah, it could be, huh?
I don't need. So I figured a little fluff in a couple hours.
That's kind of funny. So it's a Bitcoin. You heard, of course, that Bitcoin's basically gone now.
Yeah,
it's still-
Bitcoin.
It's
No,
still
it
around.
went poof, pretty much.
Oh yeah.
It pretty much came unraveled about 90 days ago.
Yeah. And
Because of Mount Dox, it's still around, but it's nowhere as near as high as it was.
There's all these guys that thought they were smarter than everybody else and bought all this Bitcoin stuff, and some stores started taking out, and they lost almost all their value. So there you go,
There's
folks.
still things accepting Bitcoin. The funniest thing is there's these twins who originally came up with the idea of Facebook, and they invested some of the money they got from the lawsuit, and they think they allegedly bought a couple of $1 million worth of Bitcoins.
Yeah, bad on them. So much for that. That
Winklevoss.
money.
I think it was the Winklevoss twins.
As we move into the future, and different currency will occur all over the place.
Yeah.
I would just tell you a quick story. I paid a life insurance claim, and the woman's husband was Mexican, and she was going to go back to Mexico. And I said, do not deposit this money in a Mexican bank. And she went back to Mexico and put the money in a Mexican bank and called me one day and says, I got no money.
Gee, I wonder why.
I said, because they devalued the peso. That's why I said, you'd be much better to leave this in an American bank and convert dollars.
Well, you did your job. You tried to advise her, and she chose not to listen to you. So
That's what they don't pay me the big money for.
That's right. Absolutely. It's
That
unfortunate.
guy knows something. Don't pay him.
It's the beady
Well,
eyes.
if you're going to put your money anywhere, go to
After the show,
Switzerland. Get yourself one of those fancy Swiss accounts, and then you can
I'll be
keep
honest,
your
that's-
billions in there.
That's actually on bucket list, is opening a Swiss
What the
account.
federal government wants to pay me to do.
I'll be honest, that's on my bucket list right
You
now.
want to open up a Swiss account?
I'll put $100 in there and just tell everybody, I have a Swiss bank account.
These special Swiss accounts start at $1 million.
Damn.
Yeah. It's
So much for that.
Nice try though.
If you got $1 million, they're not going to talk to you long.
Yeah, and then you're scum
Yeah,
on somebody's
so-
shoe if it's only $1 million. That's
Damn.
right.
Well, so much for that bucket list.
Yeah, that's right. And don't plan on going to Morocco anytime soon either, because
Actually,
Why?
the Cayman Islands are very good for that, and the Caymans are out by Hawaii.
yeah.
The Caymans
Caymans
are.
What's
matter of
the
fact, I-
what are
I
they
would
advertising on
check-
radio now? There's some. It's not the Caymans. It's Belize. That's it.
Belize, yeah,
Belize,
'cause
yeah.
it's a real estate scam in Belize.
Yeah, exactly. It's everybody come to wonderful, beautiful Belize. We've got great banking laws. We have all these beautiful properties.
I had a client in Santa Rosa that lived in this just bucolic little Victorian house out on the wetlands in Santa Rosa on the west side.
Yeah.
And he was a brilliant attorney, and he set up these Cayman Islands trusts.
Oh boy.
And it was one of the best advertising experiences I ever had in my life. It was great to write commercials that You got money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of money.
Lots of money.
You know where you should put it.
Great.
Somehow
We had
the
a good
Eagles
time with it,
song,
huh?
the Hotel California is coming
Hotel
by.
California, that's right. Hey, guess what, guys? We managed to do an hour here, and I think we had a good show. So,
I didn't manage to piss John off this time.
We not too bad. So we
Doesn't count if you don't
we want to thank everybody out there for watching Old Guy Tech Opinion versus Opinion. We've got John Charney and John Manajask and myself doing this show, and don't forget to hit that donate button. We need some money. We haven't had a donation in a little bit, so we need some help. So
give us your
thanks
money.
for watching Opinion
We'll
versus
sell
Opinion.
you Jonathan for a day.
That's right. We'll see you next time.